All right, hello everybody. I'm joined by Ricky. Blessed to have him on our channel like once again. And we're
My
here for our
pleasure.
episode 2 review. Hopefully everybody can hear you. Hopefully we don't got no technical difficulties today.
Oh
But
yeah, definitely tell us if
yeah,
so.
let us know in the chat if you can hear Ricky, if he sounds good and all of that. And we'll just jump right into it. So, I'll ask your
Mm.
opinion first, Ricky. What was your thoughts on episode 2? I know it was your highest rated of the first 4.
I think it's the second best episode of the entire show so far. Um, People who know me, who've seen my stuff, know that I'm really about characters, and this was such a character-driven episode. From Aegon to Aemond, Otto, Daemon, Rhaenyra, to really dive in and they openly talk about stuff that we've talked about since the very first episode aired, and it was very rewarding, you know? I feel like House of the Dragon has finally found its pacing after 11 episodes. Like that's what we're that's what suits this show best.
I agree.
And yeah, I love it. I absolutely love this episode.
I agree. I think this is I don't know what is your favorite episode. So my favorite episode is episode 8 of the first season. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's your favorite.
yeah.
Okay, I thought so, but yeah, I think they just did the perfect thing that I think a lot of the community's been wanting. Where we still had a big moment in this episode, right? We have
Mm,
the Eric fight at the end of it, and but that didn't feel like it like landed flat or anything. It felt like it was perfect. But we also had everything that they've done throughout House of Dragon right. All the small
mm,
moments. They've always done all those right. So it felt really good seeing that they fully got through the episode this time. They stuck the landing. Like, because episode 1, that was the only thing that I had a problem with, was just the sticking of the landing, and then they did it well in
mm.
this episode. So I think outside of episode 8, this is up there with my favorite for the entire show so far. I want to ask you this question because I know you've talked about it. You haven't been able to talk about it so much because
Yeah,
I want to ask.
yeah.
So, who was your standout performance of the episode?
Reese Evans, Otto. Just so incredible. I love that scene between Aegon and Otto. Like that was cinema. That was cinema. You just get a feel for the rage that's been hidden, for years. And I like how central Viserys is in all of this, It's what causes Daemon to flip, as it always does with Rhaenyra. And it's also like the neglect of Aegon. Um, and then Otto mocking him for thinking that Viserys chose him. Yeah, it's very central, and it really highlights Viserys' role in the dance, and it kind of mirror. I think both fights, Daemon and Rhaenyra and Otto and Aegon, mirror each other quite a bit, and yeah, again, I absolutely love this episode.
It was a really good one, and I'm glad you talked
Hmm,
about that point because that was my favorite scene of the entire episode.
hmm,
Was not expecting that to be my favorite. I knew like they've been building up the kind of Otto Aegon split, even going back
hmm.
even kind of into the last season, but it was just really well done. I was sitting there
Oh
the
yeah,
whole time and I was like, "Oh yeah, here we go. I'm ready to let's throw some punches, guys." I was
yeah.
waiting for. I thought they were gonna do so when they get to that part and when that scene where it's like, my father wanted me on the throne. I thought Otto was gonna throw it back on, but just right back in his face. No, I put you on there on the thrones. I thought that's where that was going. I thought that would have been cool, but they did a great job regardless. I mean, there was just so many good moments of this episode. Like we can go through all of them, but I mean, all the different characters had their moments in this episode. Even maybe we didn't see that much of certain characters, but the scenes that they were in were impactful. They were meaningful. There never felt like there was ever any scene here that was just like didn't need to be there. It was great. So I guess outside of the Otto and the Aegon scene, other notable scenes you really liked in the episode? Any that you come to mind?
Hmm. Well, I love the book change. I really think that seppuku fits the Cargill Bowl. That was a nice touch. Didn't expect that to happen. Um, I really enjoyed that. I'd also say that, the funeral procession, that was a really tough watch, but it was incredibly well done. Um, like that is exactly how panic attacks work. That was a very realistic depiction, and you just felt for Elena.
Yep.
It was very well done. I think it's probably the funeral. Yeah, it's the funeral procession. What about you?
I agree. I actually want to touch on that before I move on to like other scenes that I thought were good, but just like put yourself in Helena's like mind or whatnot. Like even like just me thinking about when I've had loved ones pass, like you really don't want like I am someone that personally just my personality, I am someone that likes to be off by myself kind of a lot and processing things and like that. And so you take that, which is kind of I think Helena's kind of her personality. You take that and you also have your child that you watched die in front of you being paraded in front of all these people that you don't know. She says that in the episode. You don't know any of these people. And especially when people are crowding in on you guys and one of these people, these common people literally just helped your son die. It's that weird moment where I really love the way I think Helena was one of the standout performances as well. And
Oh, definitely.
she that was really well done in this episode. I really enjoyed that. Um, if I was going to point to another scene I really liked, I guess, kind of the flip. We kind of talked about it a little bit already, but Aegon, or not Aegon, but Rhaenyra and Daemon's kind of breakup, more or less. I love that because it put into scenes and plot lines from the first season into this argument where I was really wondering how they were going to do kind of that relationship between the two because it has rippling effects. Of course, everything that happens has some sort of effect later on. I loved that fight and the way that it brought out kind of their different personalities and Damon's motivations and all of that. Personally, I was a big fan of that. I think both of the performances in that scene were great. Um, but yeah, let me hit on chat a little bit. We haven't talked to chat that much.
Yeah,
Um,
I have to open chat as well.
oh yeah.
Let me do that real quick.
Hi Matthew, how are you? Definitely goes. I definitely enjoyed it. Hi Maz. Ooh, this is a good talking point. They're really building up Hugh pretty early. Think they plan to make him a much more robust character in the show? They're already doing that. I mean, this is more than we got in the book. I mean, giving more of characters that
Absolutely.
were not developed, fantastic thing. You say the same thing about Alan and Adam, for instance, right? There's not a lot
Yeah.
of build up to those characters in the book. They just kind of pop out of nowhere. So I really like that as well. Um,
And it's the small folk,
yeah,
as much as as much as we're already grieving the cut of Nettles, I think they might manage it by the most important thing about Nettles is the small folk aspect, and I think they might you know lessen the damage. They might do a bit of damage control there by highlighting the small folks own, you know by doing other stuff.
agreed. I
But
think.
about the Damon and Rhaenyra
Oh yeah,
thing,
yeah. Go ahead.
what I also just love about it is this very this gigantic contrast where Rhaenyra is not a child anymore, and she says it too, and that's so important because I feel like this is kind of, at least for a portion of the fandom, it's kind of overlooked that Daemon groomed her. Yeah, it's just I don't know how you can ship those two, or
Yeah,
how you can um look at that and think that's healthy. So I'm glad that the show is depicting it the way it should, and I like that Rhaenyra is really coming into her own now. I think that goes for Alicent as well in a way, and in that
agreed.
aspect, it also kind of mirrors each they kind of mirror each other, because Alicent was the one who convinced Aegon to go for, or to accept using Jaehaerys as propaganda, and by doing that, she's getting more ruthless. War changes
Yep,
people, and we can finally see that a bit, which
agreed.
is great.
I mean, another thing, if you just think about why Rhaenyra goes to Daemon, if you think about it in the first season, wasn't also, it was the grooming stuff as well, right? That was a part of it, but also it was kind of, Rhaenyra being desperate, right? The Greens are growing in power. She feels very just boxed in, and so she goes to Daemon, who's kind of a wild card, and she also probably had feelings for him. She talks about it in the episode,
Mm.
like trying to believe that she can trust in him. Plus all those other
Yeah.
feelings that she's had from when she was younger. It adds to like a really weird dynamic between the two. So I thought that scene was handled really well.
I
High
can
Noah
only
as well. Sorry,
I
go
can
ahead.
only um repeat myself from the last stream. The, Obviously I was bitching quite a lot about Damon in season 1, and I talked about how they seemed to vilify him every step of the way. Every time they got a chance to vilify him, they did that. And I think that was all done very much on purpose now, looking at what's in store for Damon. I would honestly compare his Harrenhal storyline to characters like Theon and Jamie. Like, this is actually doing something to him, and it's better because of those choices.
Agreed.
And I think Harrenhal is is probably the best thing I've seen since season 3 of Game of Thrones. Like, that storyline is just so incredibly well done. The feel of A Song of Ice and Fire. So Damon has a very bright future on the show. It's I'll eat my words. I'll gladly eat my words because I was bitching so much about Damon, but now looking at it, I think it was worth it.
Agreed. I mean, I can't say because I haven't seen certain stuff you've seen, right? Like
You'll love it.
we're not getting there. But I mean, even the thing about Damon, it's kind of what he's continued to do. I did one thing I really liked was kind of how Mazzari and Rhaenyra kind of have that connection because in a lot of ways, again, being in a relationship with Damon, you're going to see those same flaws in his character, and so him having to running away from his problems again, not facing things and how that's going to go forward. I think that's an interesting way to build it up.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
a lot of people agreeing with you on Otto was the goat in this episode. Love to see that.
Yeah. Oh, he
Okay, so
was.
this is an interesting topic for you. I have my
Hmm.
own way I'm gonna talk about this, but Mystery says Helena could have identified cheese. Every rat catcher didn't have to die.
I guess, but would they, looking at how fucked up Helena was, would they take her and I don't know. I don't know.
Well, see, here's how I'm
It's a
going to
fair
answer
point,
this.
I guess.
I see. I actually think that you can explain this. Think about Aegon and Helena. This is Aegon's own order. This was not the council, right? So this is
Hmm.
Aegon himself ordering this. Aegon and Helena couldn't even speak to each other after the whole when they're going up the stairway, right? And you have the two they're not even talking or anything. Of
Hmm.
course, Aegon's not going to go to Helena. He's not thinking straight. He's not thinking straight. He's just bloodthirsty. He wants vengeance after his son has died. And even if maybe he was thinking and wasn't just Aegon acting on it and all that, they're not gonna just go to Helena and be like, "Oh yeah, after you do this, parade, with your son through the keep or whatever, yeah, go also go and look at however many rat catchers there are and pick out the one that did it or whatever." Like,
Hmm.
you're just not. I don't know. I get what you're
I think it
saying,
also
but
makes sense to kill all of them because how can you say that it's not gonna repeat
yeah.
itself? It might just happen again. You don't know what's who did it at that point.
Yep. I mean, it even plays into the gold cloaks. It's like Daemon still has an
Hmm.
influence over them. So how do you trust these people to protect your castle when one of them just killed your son? So
Hmm.
that's part of it, right? The paranoia that's going to be growing on both sides. Rhaenyra
Oh yeah.
just watched a fight happen literally before her eyes. She could have easily been killed if something goes different. 5 seconds difference. So I think that's going to be playing on both sides, but I
Yeah.
don't find that as much as a glaring issue mystery as you do, but that's just my take on it.
Hmm.
Um, the Otto and Aegon scene gave me Game of Thrones season 1 through 4 conversation vibes. Yes, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely was
Yes.
that quality. All my
I'd say
homies
this
hate
whole
Kristen Cole.
episode is on that quality.
Agreed. Yeah, I think this episode definitely is like prime Game of Thrones level, 100%. Ooh, this is what I was excited to hear, Ghost. Daron was finally mentioned. I was so happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Finally. And Otto's going to High Garden.
Bit of a change, but I'm down for
Yeah.
it. I like it.
Yeah, I guess they just want to show all of the big houses. I think um Roddy the Ruin might be merged with Craig and Stark too. I think they might involve Craig like for real, like, make him fight. Um and I just think that, they want to involve the popular houses as much as they can. The Lannisters, the Starks, throw them all in there. So I guess might see a few Tyrells popping up.
I also think it just makes sense. Like compared to
Hmm.
Fire and Blood, I do like this is one of those changes where I like it because it's like, why have Otto just be kind of sitting around, not really doing much? Like, use this guy. He's obviously good at, politics. He's been doing it his whole life. Why not send him
Hmm.
to Highgarden, or send him wherever you want to try and
Hmm.
get people to your side? I like that. I was a big fan of that. Cole projecting onto Eric for his dirty cloak and dishonor genuinely got me heated. Yes, I will say Cole's manipulation in that scene. That was
Yeah.
another scene where I was like, that was definitely a good way of introducing that plot. Um, what are your thoughts on that one?
I just think that they're doing a phenomenal job on the Kings and Queens cards in general. Like I really like how they're focusing on the sort of duty and dignity that comes with it. And the hypocrisy of Cole, that's just that's a way of exposing it. But it was so because of that, because of the hypocrisy of Cole, it made the Cargill Bowl even more emotional
Yep.
because you just because we had more focus on that aspect, which I think is very cool. And also the fight scene, yeah, very well choreographed. I think.
It really puts into what the whole point of the war is to show the audience, right? It's these people that are being, put brother to brother. This house, and picking between these different rulers now that Terra's family is apart. And they're not the people making these decisions. It's Kristen Cole who's telling him to do this, and because he has to, because he's going to be viewed as a treasonous guy because he didn't do this and that. I thought it was a great way, especially when we've had all this, some or not all this, but some people have thought about like they didn't like the marketing of the greens versus the blacks. All must choose. This is exactly why I had no worries because I know like this is the point of it. We shouldn't be
Mm,
choosing, right? Like Shireen's little speech in season 5. That was the
mm,
problem. Everybody was choosing. We shouldn't have been choosing. That was the issue, and I thought that was really well handled. And in this episode, great writing as well. Larissa, I cried
definitely.
for the brothers. So did we all.
Yeah, very understandable. Cargill Bowl is the Clegane Bowl we deserved.
Exactly.
I actually like the Clegane Bowl.
I thought
I'll
it
admit
was good, but it was
it
like
was pretty decent.
the problem with it was just like everything else going on around it was bad. So I was just like,
Yeah,
so the Clegane Bowl, I was just like so like mentally just checked out from the episode that it was like,
yeah, yeah.
well, I mean, it was good and
And
all, but like, does
also,
that excuse everything else that's going on?
yeah, and also the Hound was just killing like 3 Kingsguard members just like that,
Yeah.
which that would never happen in the books. That's a bit, but whatever. We're talking Game of Thrones season 8. We just watched a phenomenal episode of House
Yeah.
of the Dragon. Um,
Well, that brings up another. Oh, that brings another point. We were like we briefly talked about this on Twitter or X, whatever
ooh,
it's called. Now that we
I
mentioned
knew it was
season
coming.
8, okay. So a lot of people have been saying, like, oh, we should have brought back D&D for House of the Dragon and all this stuff. And I want to point this out right away.
Hmm.
Makes no sense. No sense. D&D, they gave you. I think season 5 is not as bad as people remember it, but it was still wasn't great. It wasn't handled the best. They got extremely lazy and just dropped the ball. So why would we bring them back? That makes no sense. But I want to get your take on this before I kind of talk about it of just the D and Ryan Condal argument or whatever.
It's still funny to me when people say that I'm a shill or something like that because I clowned the original show for years. I have a very unique hatred for how it was done in that. Because most of the times when people are talking about it, you always hear, yeah, they just ran out of books. They were amazing at adapting, and then they ran out of books and it all went to shit. When that's just not the case. We never really got Feast. We got bits and pieces of Dance, I guess, but the story was doomed the minute they started to deviate so much that it became two things, and they didn't fill that hole. Small things like I'm fine with Lady Stoneheart never appearing, but at the same time, you had Brienne and Jaime wandering around and not doing anything. So you either have to fill up that plot, do stuff that works, do stuff that actually works with the canon, or you just don't change it. As much as people are shitting on House of the Dragon now for the blood and cheese sequence, which I think is to a certain degree that's fair. If you had given Ryan Condal the source material that D&D had, there would be no debate because the source material that he's working with right now has almost no dialogue. There's nothing to this. It's all a bit wonky. There's stuff that as much as we were saying, yeah, but it was all the Maesters who wrote it. I don't know how many years after it, and it's not an accurate telling. There's stuff that you can't change. It's so big that it would have been it can't be lost. But if you had given Condal A Song of Ice and Fire, we would have had a great time.
I mean, that leads me to so my point or my I guess thoughts on this is I think it's hard to judge based upon the fact that season 1 through 4 is so beloved. And so the way I look at it is like D&D in their prime of when they actually cared about it. I always say this, when they stopped caring was when the Red Wedding, like the after effects of the Red Wedding were done. I strongly believe they took the series because of the Red Wedding moment, because of they did so many changes throughout the first 4 seasons that were kind of meant to make that episode be at least trying to make it on the level of the book, because in the book you're inside Catelyn's head, so it's a way different experience than it is on screen. You can't be inside Catelyn's head. They did things to try and equivalate that, but I think it's difficult because with season 1 and like where we are now, it's so difficult to judge because for me, from depending on which episodes you look at, you're either looking at season 5 to 6 of Game of Thrones quality, or we're looking at like the prime seasons of Game of Thrones. So it's weird in that debate because do you go with like the argument that you brought up that I even mentioned this as well? It's like, is Fire and Blood harder to adapt? Yes. Song of Ice and Fire is significantly easier to adapt based upon dialogue and all that stuff. And so I don't know. It's an interesting argument, but for me personally, I'd still give it to D&D just based upon I can't. It's hard to like put Ryan Condal into A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones and just try to project how he would have done it. But I will say this episode's it's starting to get some things going. But I did want to mention
that House of the Dragons, Westeros feels much more like the book Westeros, and especially when you guys will see Harrenhal, that's something that I don't know if he ever really got that in the original show. Just from it breathes A Song of Ice and Fire in a way that we've rarely ever seen, and I just think you can't really compare the two.
Yeah.
But I could talk for an hour about this.
Agreed.
But Yeah, you know,
Agreed.
let's talk about the episode.
Agreed. I did want to bring it up though. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no worries.
Um, so Jesus asks, "What do you think of the coldness of Daemon towards Bela? Like, damn, bro, that's your daughter. This episode is definitely painted Daemon in a selfish, bad light." I mean, yeah. I mean, like, think about his actions in the last episode. It was very selfish that he went, he kind of twisted Rhaenyra's words into doing some action and tried to justify it based upon, oh, well, Rhaenyra, you said you wanted Aemond dead, stuff like that. And so I think it's a combination of those feelings that Daemon is feeling towards, Viserys' death, his own personal things he wants. You put that with, okay, he just had this big argument with Rhaenyra, so he's pretty hot off of that. And also, Daemon hasn't been shown to be the best father in general. So, I don't know. I feel like that's just natural, the way it probably should have been, but I don't know what's your take on that.
I mean, it's fair to criticize Damon being too evil, but that is very consistent throughout the entire show, and they're gonna try to play with that now, and I think that it was worth it. Every horrendous crime that he did was worth it because we get a Jamie Theon kind of inner struggle, and it's glorious. So I'm fine with it. He lied in this episode too, by the way, when he said that he it was a
Yeah.
mistake.
Yep.
There was no mistake. I've talked about this quite a few times now. When Blood is asking him what they no she it was Cheese when Cheese is asking him what they should do if they can't find Aemond. Obviously there's this little glimpse where the camera's focusing on him, and then later on in the actual sequence Blood reveals that he said a son for a son, so that can only be what he said after the camera cuts away, because it's not part of the conversation. And they played with that in season 1 too with Air for a Day, but now so yeah, he definitely, it was on his orders. There's no, and he lied to Rhaenyra.
Agreed.
And she didn't buy it, which I thought was brilliant.
I mean, even take it a step further, it's like, why would Blood and Cheese, if they didn't hear it from Daemon, why would they then risk so much trying to find, these other kids and do it?
Mm.
Like, I don't know. I feel like it's like pretty obvious, but I guess if you do like miss one scene in the first episode, you might be very confused. So I don't know. It is weird because again, I watch these episodes almost like I watch after we get done streaming, I'll watch it again, so it's kind of hard to miss things like that. But I mean, yeah, just for the record, Damon did do it. He did like have that happen. So yeah.
Yeah.
Cola's in his ultimate villain arc. Yeah, Cole's not a very likable guy,
Yeah.
but I do understand his motivations. I do understand like where the character is, which is good. The season 1,
Yeah,
sometimes I didn't understand the character.
I would also be very motivated if I get to you know.
Leah Cook is a beautiful woman. Let's leave it at
Indeed.
that.
Indeed.
I found out my dad is a filthy Green supporter. That's no good. That's no good, Dakota. You
Damn.
gotta fix that problem.
Wait a minute, isn't he the Frey guy?
He is the Frey guy. Yep.
He has no business talking about the Greens being whatever the hell they are.
Whoa. Don't start this argument. I can't help you on that argument. The Greens are way worse.
Oh, I know. But it was so funny. I watched the stream back and I read his comments. He was very angry with me for clowning on the phrase. I'm sorry, Dakota, but
hey, don't be sorry.
I'm not.
he's a little bit of a troll. Hey, he should be happy. I like titled the stream after his idea of the phrase "did nothing wrong."
Don't you start with me, running. Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, Dakota.
Oh
I'm
my
sorry.
God, I'm so far behind on chat, but it's okay. Cola's a projecting hypocrite. There's a lot of hypocrisy going on, but that's the human part of it, okay? We're all a little bit
what I like
sometimes. Yep. Cole is the worst to the end. Yeah, we agree. I think chat is all in agreement. I'm not a Kristen Cole fan base. I love the contrast between Team Black and Team Green. It shows their similar sides to one another. I mean, I agree to your point. Like they're both having fallout, with some of the issues. A lot of the scenes like mirror one another, especially what we've talked about a lot in this episode. The like Daemon, Rhaenyra, Aegon, Otto conflicts, turmoil, and arguably being the most important people for both those camps. That's not the king or the queen. Yeah, I do like that they're developing those sides and stuff like that. I want to ask you. Okay, so Ditto brought up a scene about Aemond. What do you think about Aemond in this episode? We didn't get a lot of him, but we did get a little bit of him. I thought it was really
It
well done.
was, yeah, very telling. Obviously there was that scene in I think it was season 1, episode 7, or was it season 1, episode 9? Where they're talking about how Aegon kind of coerced him into going to the brothel, and I think it's the same lady for sure. So this
I don't
seems to
remember.
be the same lady that he has, his very first time with, and it's kind of a it's kind of,
It
gross.
it gave me as like a just a therapy session. Oh, like
Yeah,
the
I think
way.
that is his person. Like he slept. That was his first time with her, and ever since then, that's the way I interpreted it. Ever since that time, he is consulting with her.
Hmm,
Like that is the only person that gets to know his feelings.
yep.
So it was a very vulnerable scene, and I think I like that aspect of Aemond in general, because it would have been very easy to just, make him be the typical anime villain.
Yeah,
But they're not doing that, and I think that's great. That adds to it. I also like how they are already setting up Daemon versus Aemond. That's
agreed. I mean, one thing that I thought was really interesting about that scene is it kind of mirrored. This was done way better than the scene I'm about to reference, but
mm,
the Unsullied guy, that's like he's with the
mm,
I guess you would call her
yeah,
brothel worker. I don't know. Where he's doing basically the same thing, where it's like he's just kind
mm,
of like in a relaxation. Because you got to think about Aemond, like, and there was even a scene that I think really helps us. Is like if you're Aemond, who do you really go to, just to like talk about what's going on? Like you accidentally just killed someone that you're technically related to, and there you may have not liked that person, but that didn't mean you maybe wanted to kill them. But who do you go to? It's like you go to your older brother who's kind of bullied you and not been the best of brothers. No, you go to your mother. Well, in this episode, we saw Allison walk in with Aegon breaking down, and she just walks away. So
yeah.
you're not going to Allison.
Mm.
Then he doesn't have a father at this point. Like it was, I really thought it was
Arguably never had a father.
agreed. He agreed a lot. I really agree on that. So yeah, if you're Aemond, it's like you're pretty much you just want someone. You want someone. And I thought it was really well done. I really enjoyed it.
Mm.
Um, see if we got any other questions. I'm trying to keep up on chat. Paul is far more villainous to me than Aemond has ever been or will be. I will say Aemond has been a much more layered character. So I definitely see why you would think that. Cole in the first season could be very jarring, so that did not help him in season 2.
Yeah.
I think they've done a better job with the character in the second season so far. They've given him more to like, contemplate on his actions and more of a role in the second season than season 1, which I do like.
Yeah, I agree.
Reese, when you think about it, Cole is known as the Kingmaker, but it was Otto that truly put Aegon on the throne. Agree. That's more so, definitely more so
Yeah.
in the show.
Cole is not really a kingmaker in House of the Dragon.
Yeah,
They stripped him of what made him the kingmaker. Just by just him holding the crown and giving it to Aegon that's not what kingmaker means. But it's kind of the old season's problem.
agreed. Um, but yeah, I think Otto. That's why I think the scene between Otto and Aegon is so great. It's because Otto is even more important into making Aegon king. He's the one that laid all the groundwork. he's the one that, he's doing things that are very, everything's political with him, right? And so
Yeah.
we can kind of understand that, like, even in this episode, in terms of, okay, how are we going to treat, you know, Aegon's son? How are we going to treat that whole thing? We're going to spin the narrative on, oh, this was all Rhaenyra's fault, even before we know that it's, Daemon or whatever. Let's spin it on Rhaenyra, make their side look even worse. They did this war crime, and it's some of that great, like, human stuff there, because, even though, like, last episode, they were all in this small council meeting and they're talking about, oh yeah, well, we had a mistake. We had an oopsie with Luke's death. It's like, okay, well, now, we're gonna pay that back, but we're gonna go even further. We're gonna blame it all on Rhaenyra. So it's what Aegon's losing. He's losing someone that, say what you will about him, he is at least going to try and spin the tale for you the best he can.
I feel like we got to see the real Otto in during that argument. Everything he said about Viserys just, really highlights how much he loved Viserys, and then him kind of flipping and telling Aegon that, what did he say? I think it was, is that what you truly think? Something along those lines.
Yep.
Where he basically just tells him, yeah, I made you king. Your dad never wanted you to be king. I made you king. And I think that was, it was probably the realest Otto we got so far.
Agreed. Dakota says they tried to make Aemond crying to the whore, the Jamie bathhouse scene, and it was not earned. I didn't get that at all. Because I feel like Aemond already has been developed. Like, all the things he's saying is things that I feel like us, the audience, already have, like, some believability there, right? Like, he kills Luke. It's him, like, visually being like, oh shit, that should not have happened. I did not have control of Vhagar. Like, all those ones have been built up, so I felt like it wasn't the Jamie thing at all. Because, like, the Jamie thing in the show is kind of like, we don't really know the motivations of Jamie in the show. Like, we had little things here and there, of course, but it was us, being told the story kind of from, like, the Stark perspective, where those are the heroes of the story. And so when you have Jamie, this character that even Ned doesn't, like, and you come out with his Bastion, you're like, oh, yeah, that's what really happened. That's why he did it. And I just don't think it's the same for me, Dakota, personally.
Yeah, no, I got, it's kind of like, it was a tough words, but I think it was, abuse. Like, we were watching an abused man who can't help but go back to the place where he was abused, pretty much, because I think he was very, very young when Aegon took him to that brothel, and it's a very weird sort of thing where he feels dependent, and maybe that will be used to, obviously we know where the story is going with Aemon, so there's, at some point, there's nothing left of that, that inner struggle, as much as with characters. Whereas with Daemon, for example, it really starts now. It might do a reverse. It might be reversed for Aemon. So I think that's a part of him that will eventually have to die. And I think that was a very good way of doing that, even though it's kind of gross.
Agreed. I mean, think about just what war does to people. Aemon's basically the big supporter of the Green. Like, he has Vhagar. He is the power behind the Greens. Think about what war does to people. The decisions you have to make, for survival of the fittest and all these things. Some of that innocence, some of that, good morality might go out the window. I mean, I don't know. You look at some of the most popular wars, just history, and that's why war's bad. That's why the whole George R. R. Martin message: war is not good. That's why we get Arya Clash of Kings. So, I mean,
exactly.
Also, so Jesus asks, can you remind me what? So this is a little bit of spoilers. So for anybody who doesn't want spoilers, you may want to turn your ears off a little bit. But what Targaryen blood does Alan of Hull have to be able to claim a dragon? So he is from the, well, depending on which line, if you want to say it's from Laenor or Corlys, doesn't really matter, because the Velaryons are very much married into the Targaryens and all that. But
Isn't Corlys's grandma? Wasn't she a Targaryen? I don't exactly remember, but I think
I don't
it's not
remember
too far
exactly.
off. I think it's not too far off. So that's how that makes sense.
But even if you go further, even if you just go further than that, I mean, every time the Targaryens don't marry into themselves, the Valar. So if you just go
Mm,
back even before the conquest, like keep going back and back. But
mm.
Rhaenyra showed how much she cares. She wasn't really afraid for her life alone. She cared for the twin brothers killing each other too. She felt that Team Black all the way. I mean, it's pretty horrifying. You're watching,
Oh, of
one of your
course.
Kingsguard, fighting his brother to the death, and then also, killing himself as well. Like, yeah, it's pretty horrifying. Let's all just take away the fact then that you also have, okay, a dude tried to assassinate you.
Yeah.
Okay, you're thinking about that for yourself, right? But think about the event that just happened in the very end of the last episode and beginning of this episode. Okay, you just, or not you, but Daemon, somebody in your camp, murdered a child. Like, now that puts at risk, your son, all your sons. And I thought it was a really nice, touching moment, right, when you have Rhaenyra kind of with her two youngest children with Daemon, and you see that it's like her kind of worry or thinking about, what if I lost my child? How would I be feeling and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think they did a lot of really good visual storytelling as well in this episode. Not
Oh
just
yeah.
showing,
In
not
general.
telling, which was
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, you could do so many videos just about this episode. It really dives deep and I love it for it.
I mean, a scene I got a little bit of a like. This scene made me smirk. Okay, the scene I'm referencing with Rhaenyra and her children, and she gives the dragon, and I'm pretty sure she gave it to Aegon, and then you
Yeah.
just see Aegon put it away. I loved that scene.
Yeah.
As a
Yeah.
big Aegon a fan, without getting any
Yeah.
spoilers or anything, loved that scene. Nice little touch. Um, One thing I was a little interested in was we never really see Kristen Cole and Allison like actually have a discussion of what happened. It's kind of one of those things where it's just not talk about it type thing. Let's
Mm.
not bring up. I was actually surprised they did that, and that's not even a bad thing. I was like, even in my preview, watch back the stream, I thought we were gonna have some sort of like talking about that. I even thought they might even like break up by the end of this episode. Did
Mm.
not go that way. Went the other way. I want to hear what are your thoughts about that? The continued relationship of Kristen and Allison.
I think they just wanted to have them do something, especially Allison. And we know where the story is going with Cole, so we know that this is not gonna last for too long.
Agreed.
Um, so I just think this was something where they could take these two characters and make them feel something, and that guilt will transform their will kind of do something for their development. Like this is not gonna be a thing until the end, I think.
No. I mean, think about it. We're talking. Think about the plans Cole and Aemond were talking about. Think about what Aegon wants to do. Aegon wants action, and Cole is going to do that. His hand of the king.
Mm.
I mean, he is a soldier. Everything Otto said about Kristen Cole is 100% correct, regardless of what you think.
Yeah.
Your strategy would be if you were in their situations, whether you'd be like Otto, whether you'd be like Kristen Cole, or whatever. Otto is 100% correct. So,
Mm.
when we get to wars and battles, you're gonna be maybe away from Allison, so how that goes. So much to unpack in this episode. Probably my favorite of the series outside of season one, episode 8. Josh, we're kind
Yeah.
of in the same boat. I think it was right around that quality.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the second best episode of the show.
Oh God. Don't forget
Oh
to
no.
smash that like button like Aegon smashed Otto's hopes and dreams. Yeah?
Or how he smashed the Lego set.
Oh, this is a good one. Aemond broke the golden rule of prostitution. Don't fall in love with the whores. Oh God, Tyrion would have a lot to say on that.
Mm. Wherever horse go.
Yes. We'll see if Tyrion ever finds it out. Hey, we're getting a lot of Winds of Winter stuff coming out. I mean,
I'm buying into it. It's too late for me. I'm buying into it again. I swore that I would never buy into it, but now today, Elio and Linda put out something where I was like, okay, why are you posting that now? That's very weird. It was about George's latest blog post. And now he's going to the sets, attending Worldcon, speaking at Oxford. There's all these things, all this weird kind of. But I don't know. I was done predicting, but I guess I'm back now. I don't know. I'm kind of buying into it. I can't help myself. Just want that damn book, and I think it might be. I'm delusional. Just call me delusional. I'm delusional. It's gonna be here by
you know
Christmas.
what's funny? Okay, so the tweet that I put out yet, it was like yesterday. I put that out like an hour after seeing your tweet about being delusional about Winds of
Yeah.
Winter, and I was like, this is my position. I'm so far
Uh,
past like trying to be
I
like,
know.
oh yeah, Winds of Winter might be coming out. No, until
Yeah.
I concretely see something like about George saying anything about Winds of Winter, I'm just
Yeah.
like, I'm not getting my heart broken again. I'm not going back to that bad ex. It's just not happening. Um,
Yeah, I know.
I'd say Daemon broke that falling in love with the sex worker rule with Mazari in the first few years, at least as much as he could love anyone. Daemon only loves himself and slightly other. I will say, I think Rhaenyra talking about Viserys definitely did strike a nerve with Daemon, because I also agree that Daemon, did love his brother to an extent, and I don't think they, either one of them went about it the best or the healthiest. But I still think, and I think this kind of gets lost on, because it's been 2 years for us between seasons, like still very close to Viserys' death. Like, this is probably the
Yeah.
person Daemon was the closest to in his entire. It's him struggling with kind of that baggage there. How do people process grief? You're seeing all different types of it. Helena, where you can't even speak really. It just seems like
Yeah.
paralyzed. You see Aegon lashing out. I think that was also another great part of this episode, just the reactions of grief.
Oh yeah. The performances are such a step up from the last season too, and the last season was brilliant in that regard. So um I think the focus on a variety of the cast is just it enhances the entire show.
Agreed. Ooh, this is interesting. I'm gonna also put you on this question, Ricky.
Hmm.
What do you think will happen with Mazaria? She saw Eric's twin but did nothing.
I can't speak about it. I'm sorry. I've
Okay,
seen
okay.
the other two
Oh yeah,
episodes,
I
so
forgot. I always forget you see. I will say on one part of this, what was she really supposed to do? Like, he was already like ahead of her. Maybe she could have told a guard and that would have helped alert people, but I don't throw that all on Mazzaria. I do think Mazzaria, she seemed like she was going back or was stopping at least, so she probably will end up, counseling Rainier, or at least, having some effect there, but I wouldn't put that all on Mazzaria.
mm.
But Grease, did you say hello to me? Ashley, I said hello to you now. There you go.
What's up, Ashley?
One of the GOAT mods. Check out, for all the people in the comments, check out her channel. I know she gets embarrassed by that.
Hmm.
She's very good though. I love the white worm and Rhaenyra scene. It was like watching Rhaenyra the dragon circle the little white worm to see if she's worthy of being Team Black. That's
Oh
true.
yeah, yeah, I love that too. That was just her breaking free of Daemon kind of brought out a fiery side of her that I really liked. Like you can really feel that there's a shift now,
Agreed.
and that will continue. That is something that I think was very well done. Yeah.
It's the Rhaenyra I've been waiting for
Oh yeah.
1 season and 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. So this is a good question. So what would you? Because now you've watched this episode, you can rate this episode, correct?
Yeah.
What would you rate the episode?
I give it a 9 out of 10 for my review.
Agreed. I'm probably in the same boat. I would give it 9 out of 10.
Hmm.
Um. All right. Well, I think that's a good spot to end the stream. I don't want to go too long
All
because
right.
it's like what 5 a.m. right now for you, Ricky.
Yeah, it's 5 a.m. So I got like 50 minutes and it's off to work for me.
Jesus
Gonna
Christ.
hop into the shower now, drink a cup of coffee, and then I'm gonna go to work.
We need some prayers for Ricky in the chat for staying
Oh
up,
yeah,
for hopping
that's
on
all
the
right.
channel. You know,
I chose this. I chose this life.
you did. It's a good life though. It's very
Oh
rewarding.
yeah.
Sometimes. Sometimes.
Sometimes,
Um.
yeah.
But yeah, thank you for hopping on the stream. Thank you for everybody chatting and stuff. And we will see you in the next one. I won't be back
Hmm?
until episode 4. So all my viewers, if they're looking for a channel, why I'm not doing anything, I will be out of town. So check out Ricky.
Thank you.
And I
I'm
will.
gonna
Oh, go ahead. Go
I'm
ahead.
gonna be live with D Charles next week on my channel. Which I think D Charles is one of my favorites, some of us and far YouTubers as well. So feel free to join if you want to join.
Join and
We're gonna have
represent Team Black for me.
yeah.
All right. Well.